Chris, I appreciate you coming and chatting with me today. So, for everybody out there, I am talking to Christopher Small. He is the owner of CMS Law Firm. And Chris, I appreciate you being with me today. The first question that I want to ask you is, why did you decide to start CMS Law Firm?
Thanks for having me, Quasi, by the way. Appreciate it. I like to come and do these. So it's super fun. Okay, so it's actually a two-parter, kind of. I originally started CMS Law Firm in 2009. It was a criminal defense and personal injury firm. And I sort of morphed and then I sort of restarted it again in 2016 as an estate planning firm. And the reason I made that transition, which I think is probably what's most important for what we're talking about, is that quite frankly, I kind of got burned out doing the other stuff and I had kids. And once I had kids, sort of legacy, family protection, like all these things became real concepts for me. They became things that I was inherently interested in and valuable to me, and I could see the value for others. And because I had kind of gotten burned out doing the other stuff and had this sort of awakening with my kids, I looked around and another thing about estate planning that I really love, and one of the reasons why that's all we do now, is that for the most part, like 99% of the time, people come into my office in a good place and they leave in a good place. And that doesn't happen in a lot of other areas of law. And it just makes me feel good, honestly. And the reason I started my firm is because I like to have control over the process, control over the client experience. My number one goal is to provide everyone with an amazing client service, and they don't always get that at other places. And I wasn't able to really do the things that I wanted when I was working at other places. So that's the long version of the story.
Yeah, well, and I can definitely appreciate that. It sounds like your journey comes with a why, but also I can understand client experience, and just dealing with clients when they're in a good place and leaving in a good place. That's just really exciting to hear, man. So tell me, for the listeners out there, what is estate planning? So what do you do?
Right. So I made a list of the things that actually sort of I think the client experiences or gets from the process. And I'll tell you the nuts and bolts after that. But really,
Okay.
what I give people is sort of I give them family protection, right? Give them personal protection, peace of mind, certainty, sort of future opportunity, and multi-generational success, right? And so that's really what they get out of the experience. What they walk home with are documents, power of attorney, medical power of attorney, healthcare directive, a will, a trust sometimes, depending on what they want to do. And really, what we're talking about is how are they protecting themselves if they are injured, really, and are unable to help themselves. The classic examples are if you're in a car accident and you're in a coma, or you're old and you have Alzheimer's, right? Who are the
Mhm.
people that are going to take care of you? These documents allow you to choose those people and sort of outline those responsibilities. And then also, after you die, right? Where does your stuff go? Who is in charge of taking care of your kids if you have young children? And then also, how is the money that you have, worked all your life to acquire, how is it going to be distributed to your people in a way
Mm.
that either gives them the money outright or sort of affords them a little bit of additional protection so that it's used for continued opportunity and growth for your family into the future, right? So that's sort of the gist of it.
Wow. Yeah. And so who would you say your customers are?
My customers tend to be in reality sort of everyone across the board. Single people, people with no kids, people with kids, people with significant assets, people with maybe what you would call not a lot of assets. My sort of the people that come to me most though tend to be sort of working professionals that have kids at home, or young kids under 18. Those tend to be sort of the clients that come to me most. Families, working families, right? They want to make sure that the assets that they've accumulated are protected. Often they have life insurance policies for their kids or for their spouses. And they also want to make sure that if something happens to both of the parents, that they have done everything that they need to do to put the right people in place to both raise the kids and then also make sure that the assets that they have are used, to the benefit of the kids.
Yeah. And you know what? It sounds like one of those things that I think with you saying that's mostly who you see, right? But it's a wide range of people. Everybody needs to do it. It's just a matter of getting it done right. And those people who have kids, who have those assets, they have a bigger why. coming into it, but it really sounds like you help everybody and everybody should have this.
100%. They have the
Okay.
motivation mostly to come in. It's also clear that you need to have something, right? If you have kids at home, you can, and you think about, well, what if we go on a date night and we don't come home? What happens? And you get to estate planning pretty quickly asking those questions. If you're single,
Absolutely.
you don't often think about, what if I'm in a car accident and I'm in a coma for 3 months? Who's going to pay my bills? Who's going to just take care of my dog? Who's going to do whatever the things are that need to be done? Most people in those situations don't really get to those questions or even know that there's a solution for that. So I do end up helping everybody, but typically the people with the motivation and the people that get to the answers are going to be your families.
Yep. Yep. And so, what is the number one question that your customers should ask, and and basically, what do you do to help them?
Yeah. So then, I mean, the number one question across the board is like, what should we do? Right. I
Yep.
know I've heard of like wills, I've heard powers of attorney, I've heard of these trusts, who needs a trust? What should we do? And that typically gets sort of knocked out or taken care of at the first meeting, which is, so I give free uh, consultations. And typically at that time, we talk about what's your family, who's in your family, what kind of assets do you have, what are your goals, and then based on the information that I get, I can kind of give you a good idea of these are the options, these are things that you need to do. And for me, when we have these, my number one goal is always um, to allow the people that are in my office to make an informed decision. So I literally
Hmm.
tell everybody, I don't care what you do, and I really don't. There is no right answer, but the wrong answer is making a choice based on incomplete or inaccurate information. And so,
Absolutely. Yeah.
these meetings are just a time for them to ask as many questions as they want, and then for me to really say like, look, you know, this thing will do this, but it won't do that. If you want to do that, you need to have this other thing as well, that kind of a thing. So, but that's definitely the number one question, right? What do we do? It's sort of like when I try to go get my car fixed, I know something's wrong and I know I need to get something done, but I don't understand cars, so I kind of have to just go and listen and trust that the person I'm talking to knows what they're talking about, can spot the problems and sort of teach me about them, you know?
Yep. Absolutely. That's a great analogy. And a lot of times I tell people when they're going in, to that car person, it's like, hey, is it a screeching sound? Is it a whining sound? Right? That's just them diagnosing it so that they know what to look for. But most of the time when you go in there, you're just like, man, my car's making a funny sound. No, that doesn't help. So it sounds like what you do in these consultations is, hey, here's what is going on, and you help to diagnose them and point them in the right direction and say you got to do A, B, or C, or A, B, and C. So that's great.
Right. Exactly.
And what is the big problem that your customers run into, and what do you recommend that they do to solve it?
Yep. The biggest problem is it. I would place it under lack of time, but the true problem and the true sort of resistance that people run into when it comes to estate planning is that estate planning is important, but it's not urgent, right? So if you don't have your estate plan done today, you don't feel bad. Like you're not, your life goes on. You still got to take the kids to swim lessons, and you still got to go do that presentation at work. I don't know. You still got to go deal with your crazy uncle or whatever. Whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so life can just kind of get in the way. And so the solution that I try to come up with for that is just really to eliminate as many barriers to getting this process completed as possible. So I mean, that takes its form in a bunch of different ways. I'll do phone consultations and phone meetings with people. I have a lot of clients that I only see one time, and that's when they come in to sign, because we talk over the phone, we talk via email, and I make in-person meetings available to everyone if they want them. But I also don't hamstring people by making them drive, through Seattle traffic to come meet me, when it's not necessary. Like, I mean, anybody can talk on the phone. I follow up with everybody with a very scheduled, regimented follow up, which people often really like, because then they don't forget that this draft of this estate plan is sitting in their inbox waiting for them to look at. Just offer a lot of flexibility, and I do everything I can to just eliminate. What I really try to think about is like, what kind of excuses are people making for not coming in here? And then I just eliminate them,
Yes.
So it's like, oh, I
Yes.
don't have enough time to come into the office. Okay, that's cool. Let's talk on the phone.
Yep.
Whatever. I forgot about this thing. Nope, no, you didn't. I'm going to remind you every week. I have clients that I sent an email reminder to every week for 2 years, to get their will signing done. They're coming. They're coming in. They're coming in next week. Those people are actually 3 years. I have a 3-year client, that's coming in to sign next week. I just put email reminders every week. Every 6 months, they'd like pop their head up and say, "Hey, um, we're still
We want to
here."
do it.
That's
Yeah.
right, totally.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's really, I think, the solution in many ways is just eliminating all of those barriers to entry, and just making it as easy as possible for people to complete the process.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. I think what you're doing is a service to a lot of people, because a lot of people, they're going to put up their own barriers about doing everything else besides estate planning, right? They want life to be simple and easy, and if you can make that easy, which you are absolutely doing, being that flexible, that's just great, man. And more people are going to be able to take advantage of just having their estate planning done. So do you
Yeah.
have, I mean, you just shared a story about, some clients that, you've been talking to on and off for a few years, and they're finally coming in to sign. You got any other interesting customer stories that you want to share?
I don't have a ton of great client stories, like nothing like super interesting. I think only because I mean, I just don't. But there is one thing I wanted to pop back, because I thought of one other thing that is a big problem for people, and I wanted to really talk about it, because this is sort of like, this is even a bigger level than I don't have the time, and I think it's
Yes.
really important, and I really want people to hear about it. And it's either, another big problem that people have is either, um, I don't I don't want to think about death, number one, or I
Mm,
don't know who my people are, right? I don't have a guard. I can't tell you how many people have called me and they said, I don't have a good guardian for my kids. So we just haven't done anything. And I wanted to just take a moment to sort of like slap you in the face in a way and say, hey, like
yes.
if you don't make these choices, a judge is going to make them all for you. Okay.
Yeah.
And and often they're not going to be the people that you want. Often you're going to pay a significant amount of money to have people that you don't want to sort of take care of your life. And when it comes to kids in particular, I always say, like, right now, your best B choice, the best option that you have amongst all your people is still your best choice, and you still should put that guardian nomination in your will. Because if you don't, what often happens is, and everybody, I have yet to have anyone nod their head no, but I say, look, think about that person that's in your family or in your close circle that would look amazing on paper to take care of your kids, but that you would never ever have watch your kids, as in a parental role, like step in as to be the parent. Because we all have different views on religion and politics and school and money and things like that, and a judge who's going to be picking the guardian of your kids is not going to know any of that information about you. So it's going to be very
Yes.
hard for them to decide who the best stand-in parent is for your kids. And so you really have the obligation and the duty to sort of be mature about this process, understand that yeah, we are all going to die, and that you not doing completing these documents is not going to prevent that from happening. And if you, okay, I'm about to get real, I'm about to get big
Get
slap in the
real.
face. Like, if
Hey,
you
that's
love
why
your,
that's why
what
I
I tell
called
people
you
is,
to do this interview, Chris. Let's keep it real, right?
I literally tell people, like, look, if you love your kids, then you should be doing this, right? And I'm
Yes.
not even trying to get you to do it with me. It needs to be done. Like,
Yes.
this is a huge problem. And if you talk about how much you love your kids on Instagram and Facebook and blah blah blah, then you need to be able to look them in the eye and say, I'm taking care of you if something happens to us. All right. Um, so anyway, that's my rant over. But it's important. That's why I said, like, when I had kids, that's when this became really real for me. And
Yeah.
I could see sort of the the benefit that you can get from this. And also I have seen and I see the problems that are really caused when these things aren't in existence and something happens, you know? So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that's it. That's my rant on that,
Well, Chris,
Sorry.
I really, really appreciate you, just keeping it real and putting it out there because that's what people need to hear, right? They need to hear that um, they don't want to judge picking it. And even that person that you're hesitant or whatever, that, making that choice or having that conversation with that person is and what your values, putting it in that box of saying, what's my values? What do I want out of my kids? Who's going to be able to give the attention, right? All of these things, the judge isn't going to know that. And so it's up to you. You do know that. So it's almost like make a choice. But don't just make that choice now. What people really need to do is just give you a call, have a consultation. Like, and you said, like, I eliminate the barriers. Let's just have a conversation and figure out what's going to be best for you. So
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's,
And the other,
I,
the last important thing to remember when it comes to estate planning is that, this stuff is not set in stone. As time goes by and as new people come into your life and as other people fall out of it, it's very, very easy to update your plans to sort of update the people that fill these positions for you. So I think a lot of people feel like these are like really super static documents that once they make them, it's really hard to change them, but it's not in reality. So I try to get people to approach estate planning as sort of a process more than a destination when they come in, you know. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Chris, man, I really appreciate you, doing this interview, getting this information out to my clients, and just, the general population, right, about what they need to know about estate planning and how you can help. So, Chris, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. I love coming here. Thanks for asking me.
You're welcome.